Welcome to the Empty Cans Podcast.
My name is Mark,
I'm Tom.
and today's episode is all about a new brewery in Garden City. Tom, have you gone there?
I have.
Familiar with it?
I am.
Okay. The new brewery down in Garden City is called Brown Beard Brewing, and today we have Bryce with us. Bryce, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
welcome, Bryce. All right, so today we are drinking a lovely beer that Bryce brought for us. It is a White Russian Golden Stout.
Yes.
Bryce, you want to tell us all about this one?
Yeah, I'd love to. That's my golden stout. I kind of created this beer over the years to pay homage to the dude of The Big Lebowski because I just love that movie. He's such a great character. So I thought, how could I make a beer like the dude would abide by? So I I made a White Russian Golden Stout, and it's kind of evolved into what it is now. But it's a very coffee forward. It pours blonde, tastes very coffee forward. It's aged with, it's got lactose for a nice creamy mouthfeel, and it's aged on single barrel rum staves. I say single barrel, but it's just rum staves that give it a very heavy vanilla. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Okay.
So I'm digging this one. I actually opened this a little bit ago, and we've just been kind of sitting here bullshitting a little bit.
A little bit.
But so I'm just about done with mine, but I'm really digging it.
It's a great beer.
You know, it's a lot like the coffee golden stout that we had at Loose Crew, but like Bryce said, this has the creamy feel to it, and that's so completely different.
I love the complexity. Like, it's not like overpowering coffee, but you definitely get that mouthfeel. So you get the mouthfeel first, and then you get the coffee. And to me, it's such an easy drinking beer. Like, I think you could drink this all year round.
As you should be able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of like, I say, it's kind of like the beer that we've had the most compliments on or comments about, because of the way it pours as a blonde. Yeah. And it drinks, if you close your eyes, you'd swear you were drinking a dark beer.
Absolutely.
Which is it's kind of a fun thing to experience. And I hope to keep it around all year. It's kind of been a really fun.
Very good.
It's been a fun beer to present to people.
And I love the fact that it doesn't drink heavy like a normal stout would. It's really light to me. It doesn't feel like I'm just going to be done after one.
Perfect.
So it's really good.
Well, thank you.
What's the percent on this?
8%.
8%.
It's heavier than it drinks, but it's nothing overpowering.
So you can have a few and still be okay.
Yeah.
Still function.
Yeah, it's a snifter beer for sure. 12 ounce pour. You have 2 pints of that, maybe we'll talk. But two snifters, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to congratulate you on the opening weekend. We were there on the Friday. We did hear that you had to close down because you ran out of beer.
Yeah. That was a decision that I made. The opening day was just unbelievable. That was kind of a dream come true for me, to be completely honest with you. I've been working towards opening a brewery for 7 years. I came in, from working out of a place I rented that was the size of this room we're in, or, that was actually probably a little smaller. It was like a closet, glorified closet, to being able to to open a brewery that you can actually have people in that's legal and you can sell beer. And I was doing it in my garage and giving a ton of beer away or having people over in my basement. So, we sold more beer than I could have ever imagined our first weekend. I was just blessed.
Crazy.
It was blessed. I was very blessed and very thankful for everybody for their show of support. We did kind of make the decision to scale our hours back. Mostly because I didn't want to have a brewery that was just full of guest taps. I wanted to make sure that we were still pouring at least a couple of our beers.
Sure.
So when we decided we would scale back, we just wanted to make sure we had 2 or 3 or 4 of our own beers on tap at all times. Yeah.
Well, I know like this beer community in Boise is like very inviting, and everybody really helps each other, and they're very close knit. So that probably really helps.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't count everyone, so if I missed someone, I apologize. But there were at least 6 breweries there. The cidery from Merriweather Ciders, those gentlemen were there. They made sure to introduce themselves. It was really neat. And I've seen them around a lot lately. There's a couple distributors there just the first day. So there was just a fantastic show of support. from the other beer breweries, the community, the canners there, and just all kinds of folks. And I don't know how many brewers have come in and sat down at my bar, and I've got the opportunity to chat with them. Just a couple weekends ago, James from Barbarian and his brewer, and Beth was there last night sitting down, and
Very cool.
I mean several others, but it was just a fantastic way to be behind your bar and have a beer.
Well, let's start talking about us normos that
Yeah.
came in.
Us normos.
I mean, me, Tom, my neighbor Mike, all day drinker Mike, he came with us. All three of us came down, and it was fucking crazy. We had to sit outside.
No, we
it was
stood
like-
outside.
It was like
we didn't stand. We didn't sit.
I swear
we
it was
stood.
12 degrees outside.
It was
with the
cold.
wind chill. And
It was
shit.
cold.
Yeah.
Cold.
Thank you for braving it.
No,
But-
yeah.
But yeah, I got the double IPA,
Juicy
the
Five.
juicy. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I got too.
Fantastic beer.
Great. Thank you.
This one's a fantastic beer.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. I
That was
appreciate
nuts.
you braving the storm.
Yeah.
there. That was
No.
that was honestly one of the most. I mean, I got married. That was probably the best day, but this might be the second or
The
third
second
best
best
day of my
Okay.
life. I really was. You work for something for so long, and
yeah,
you get the chance to open, and you have so many people come that are excited. Man, really good way
Yeah.
to spend.
and you had a 2-day opening, Friday and Saturday. I drove by Saturday. It was still fucking nuts.
Yeah, yeah. We had a pretty good showing on Saturday, and I think we only had 20% less business on Saturday, which was, and so Friday, which we were open technically 5 to 11. I opened the door at 2:30 because people were knocking on the door and coming by. And
Yeah.
I met Joe Prine that day. He does the can collection, and he came really early, but he was asking for a can, and it was cool. It was cool to just, and then the people that kept showing up were usually, they were industry people or really beer enthusiasts. I think everybody that came that day was a beer enthusiast, but really neat, really neat. And Saturday was just as busy.
I guess beer enthusiast is better than a normo.
I would say we're beer enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Anybody that goes, beer enthusiast.
So, Bryce, what do you think your top selling beer has been so far?
If I were to sit down and look at the data, our first weekend we sold over 100 more of the Juicy Five.
Okay.
And I thought that turned out to be a really fantastic beer. It's probably because I have a little bit better equipment and access to better quality hops. So that beer was fantastic. And now from our first weekend to now, it's 100% that Beard Labruski, the beer you're drinking today, our White Russian coffee
Yeah.
stuff.
So when you opened up, how many beers did you have on tap?
Yeah, I wanted to come out swinging. I didn't want to open the door
Right.
with 3 beers or 4 beers. I had 8 beers on tap.
Wow.
And I was very happy with that. I was impressed. I
Yes.
was, I had a day job before this, so I was working a lot to get those beers out. Wonderful. And the first day we were down to 6. So we sold 2 barrels worth of a barrel of each of 2 different kinds.
Wow.
That first, just before we even closed that night, we popped 2 different beers. So maybe 6 would have been better with more quantity on certain ones, but I never could have guessed that. But 8, yeah. So we started with 8.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. We had a couple. One thing that I liked and I wanted to focus on was breakfast beers. So we have this Beard Labruski, which is like a White Russian, or it's very coffee forward. I had a maple bacon beer, which was really fun. So it's like smoked bacon, sweet maple syrup, and is a nice easy drinking brown ale. So we'll keep bringing those in over the years.
So they started doing a while back, beer and bacon.
Yeah.
You going to be a part of that with your
Would
your
I
beer?
love to be a part of that? Absolutely.
That-
Do I know if I will be able to be a part of that? No, but I will plead my case.
Yeah, for sure.
I went, me and my wife, my brother and his wife, we went probably a few years back, and it was just nuts.
Yeah.
It was a great time. We had all kinds of different beers. We did try Sockeyes Bacon Bach, which,
Nice.
wow, that was different. I'm not used to bacon in beer, so
No.
yeah, it's different.
It's for me. It came down to how subtle can you make it.
Right.
If it's overpowering, it's weird or gross. It's not. It's not good.
Yeah.
If it's underpowering, it's like, well, I don't really get the bacon in this. So I tried to add more smoke to mine than I did bacon. So that way, when you have it, it's like, oh, this kind of tastes like bacon. It's smoky, so it's like smoked bacon, and it almost leaves that grease film on the top of your mouth.
Okay.
That good bacon does leave.
Right.
So
Right.
and it's the mouthfeel in that for me is slightly greasy. That's the way I would describe
There you
it.
go.
So it's almost perfect. Yeah.
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 It's kind of like a dill pickle beer. Like
Yeah,
you don't want to be too much and don't want to be.
You could dare very much overpower your
Yeah.
dill pickle beer.
Yeah. Okay.
Martin House, I think Martin House did a pretty good one when I was in Austin this last year.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, that's pretty good because we were eating Franklin's Barbecue, one of the best barbecue joints in the nation, and we had a pickle beer, and I thought this just goes together very well.
There you
I
go.
only got through one pickle beer, but it was
yeah.
a compliment to the situation I was in.
It's kind of like those spicy beers, like the habanero or the jalapeno.
Yeah,
If you,
Right.
it's like a one and done
One and
thing.
done, yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
And some of them are a little bit too much, where you can't really even get through the one.
I've
So,
had a couple of those
Yeah.
in my day.
Mhm.
No
Yeah,
doubt
for
about
sure.
it.
Yeah.
I think Ballast Point had one like that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. The
Too spicy on the
habanero sculpin, I think it was.
Mm.
It was pretty spicy.
Yeah, that's something I would try though. I would try it.
I
once.
Try it
that's
one
why
time.
I tried it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay.
Very good. So while you guys were talking, I looked it up on Untapped. And are you familiar with Untapped?
I am now. I became an Untapped member once while I was sitting at a brewery. I think it was Loose Screw actually, and they had the Untapped menu. And I was sitting there, and I was like, "You could get your name on the menu." And it was like the last person to check when it was 2 days ago. So I was like, "I'm going to become an Untapped member,"
Yeah.
and that was how I got into it. And now we are actually signing up for Untapped for Business, so I can have that menu at my brewery.
Nice.
Well, and for other reasons, but
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
selfishly, I'd like to check in a beer at my own brewery and
Well-
see my name on my menu.
You know, a lot of people, I personally love to go to Untapped all the time.
I do.
A lot of
yes.
times, if you don't have Untapped, I'm going to go somewhere where I know they have good beer.
Yeah,
So, looking here, you've got 2 ratings on 2 different beers. Well, no, you've got 13 ratings on one, 17 on the other.
oh,
The one rating is the Alley Cat Breakfast Stout.
yes.
Which one's that?
That's my breakfast stout. So I love stouts. 6 months out of the year, I'll drink a heavy stout. I'm actually drinking a heavy stout today. Thanks for letting me do that here.
Yeah.
So that's my version of a barrel aged beer, although it doesn't go into a barrel. So it's a dark stout aged with maple syrup. So it uses maple syrup, and then it's aged on maple syrup. It's aged on dark chocolate nibs, and then I use a boatload of barrel oak from a bourbon barrel to give it not the warming bourbon flavors that you get from a barrel beer, but enough to where you can say there's definitely bourbon in this beer, or the feel of it from the oak and the vanilla. So that is a really fun beer that I really like, and it, although it doesn't go in a barrel, I can get a barrel aged beer I could get the flavors of that out within 2 weeks. So it's a really good way for someone who's in my tight little quarters to have something taste barrel aged.
Very good. And it's only an 8%er,
Yes.
not one of the big ones.
No, it's very drinkable. I still have people asking me if I'll bring it back. So I'm like, it's kind of the wrong time of the year, but yeah,
Sure.
Sure,
you got
yeah.
people asking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one's rated 3.99.
That's
Wow.
pretty good.
So that is pretty good.
That's awesome. I did not know that, so that's pretty cool.
The other one that you have rated right now is the Beard Brewski,
Okay.
which is what we're drinking now,
Yeah.
which I will admit is dynamite. Do you know the rating on that one?
I don't even know if I could guess. It'd be like, honestly, that's been my most popular beer though, to sell it. So
So it's
yeah, it's been a really fun beer to present to people. It's been, yeah.
okay. That one is rated 4.22.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
really high.
that is a really good rating.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know too many breweries around here that are cranking out 4.22 ratings.
Yeah,
So,
honestly, that's
Good job.
well. Thank you. Yeah, that's a blessing. That's been a lot of fun, and I thank the community for putting a rating on there for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's really good.
It is
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah. Jeez, that's awesome.
Yeah, Tom, would your wife like this one?
I think so. I think she'd like to try it.
I think my wife would try it.
My wife loves it.
Well, there we
Not
go.
that
There
that
you
means
go.
much.
I mean,
She's
hey.
probably very biased.
Yeah,
But
Probably.
Well, sure,
A little
sure.
bit. Just a little bit.
But as long, yeah,
yeah.
it's all good. Okay, so let's get back to basics here. Where are you from?
I actually grew up here in Idaho in Emmett. So I was born in Boise, St. Luke's downtown, and I grew up in Emmett.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, a native. Native to this land.
Awesome.
Not too many people can say that nowadays.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, it's very true. I actually was born in Lewiston.
All right on.
Came down to Twin, Boise, Twin, back to Boise. So
Right on.
Idaho native.
Awesome.
I'm not an Idaho
Yeah.
native, but I've been here since '92, so I kind of
That's
consider
pretty good.
myself,
Yeah, 30
like,
years.
yeah,
31
so-
now. Yeah.
yeah. So
Not so
I think you could consider yourself a native now.
that's what
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
honorary
You can't be
native.
more than 35 years old.
Oh shit! Whatever.
Whoa, shit.
Sorry, people would say I blow smoke a lot.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Pretty good at that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Tom's blushing a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to meet another native, if you will.
Bryce, what is your background in the beer industry?
I don't have one.
Okay.
So, which is I think is kind of funny. I guess so. I started home brewing. I was dating a girl whose family was really into it at the time, and this gentleman, Bill, who was the first person I brewed a professional, I would say professional batch of beer, because this guy was detailed in every. He's very, very good. He had detailed notes. Like he was a professional. And he had this beautiful system in his garage, and it was like a 3-tier system with the tippy dump, and it was like a I don't know if it was a barrel, but thinking back about it, it was at least a 25-gallon setup.
Oh my gosh.
And he had a big home brewery, and this was the first time that I'd brewed beer with someone that knew what they were doing. He was good. And after that, I started thinking. I was a musician at the time, and I thought, well, if I owned a place, no one could tell me that I couldn't play my guitar there. It'd be my place. Like you just have to come in because the beer was good and suffer through my horrible guitar playing. But no, so then that's where the idea came from. I've never poured a beer outside of what I do at the brewery before in a professional setting or legally, I guess I say that. But I poured beers in my garage out of my homebrew setup and then my basement at my house. So that's still legal because you're a home brewer, but as a professional, I've never poured a beer before until I got to Brown Beard Brewing Company. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was I don't have a lot of experience. Never worked at a restaurant before. No experience in a brewery.
That's pretty cool.
Everything I did was it just came from the will to want to open a brewery. About 7 years ago, I started in a little tiny closet, and I worked my way into the very small brewery that we have now. But it's significantly bigger than anything that I've had, and a whole boatload of fun. It's just a ton of fun.
I think it was shortly after you opened. Boise Dev did an
Yeah.
article on you,
Yeah.
and they mentioned how you rented out a space in Nampa.
Yeah, and actually, that came out like 3 days before we opened.
Okay.
And so that was just super helpful because a lot of people came in and mentioned that they read that. So I think that drove some traffic, which was great because they are very on top of it. I did not reach out to them. They saw that I was posting or they saw my business license go through. I mean, they found me, and I'm so thankful for that article. That was such a great article. Yeah, and she's not wrong. So I kind of sat down on a 15-minute interview with her, and she mentioned that. But yes, I have a pretty long arm wingspan, but the building is just over 8 feet in width, and I have over a 7-foot wingspan, so I can almost touch. And so I filled this little closet. It was 8 by 17, and 3 foot of that was a little restroom, which was closed off. So the brewing space was 8 by 14. It was very small, and I filled it with every piece of equipment I could get. I had shelves with grain in there. And the goal, I worked about 3 blocks away, and all the people that I worked with were beer lovers, so most of them. And so I would go and I would brew all the beer there, and then they would come down and they would try it, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is good." And they're like, "Will you brew a hef if I help you pay for the supplies?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, that'd be great." So I got a lot of practice doing hefs and IPAs and stouts and porters and the Dunkelweizen, which is one of my favorite beers. They happen to love that. So so that was really great. And then I did that. I had that little space. Thankfully, it it was $300 a month, and all the utilities and water were included.
Oh,
So it was very inexpensive for me to kind of make it a hobby getaway, or to get the beer brewing out of my house so it wasn't always available when I got off of work, which was great. And then they would come and they would pitch in, and they really kind of helped me out, getting all those recipes developed and kind of making that initial push to become a good brewer a reality. Because if I didn't have, I was doing 1 or 2 batches a week there, 2 tanks, sometimes 2 batches a week and 10 gallons at a time. We became, we worked up to now having 63 recipes
wow.
that I believe are ready to hit the tap room. At least I think they are.
That's
through
awesome.
through all different kinds of styles. Aside from sours, I've never dabbled with that or messed with it. I don't even really like them, to be honest with you. So I probably won't until there's enough demand for me to try to start dabbling around with it.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
a cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The goal when I rented that place was, I got out of the relationship with the gal who knew the folks that brewed, but the goal was, how can I open my own place? So I rented that, and I had a 15-gallon keg fermenter, and I had a 6-gallon conical that had a glycol chiller built in and a tap, and it had you could cold crash out of it, filter the yeast out. I mean, it was very professional, kind of what I'm doing now. So it was, I got that, although it was very expensive. I got that piece of equipment from New Zealand, and I brought it in, and I thought, this is exactly what I want to do on a large scale. So I brought that in, and I started doing it with that piece of equipment, 6 gallons at a time, or 5 gallons at a time, with the gallon of headspace. And I just kept working at it, and now I do it all on a 1 barrel or 2-barrel scale, depending on how long of a day I want to spend
Right.
at the brewery. And so that became my hobby and my professional, my personal professional life. It was like, how can I turn this into a professional thing? So that's why I rented the space and started working on all those recipes. And that was about 7 years ago.
Nice.
Okay, so help me understand this.
Yes.
Your timeline in relationship.
Yes. Okay.
So you said you were dating a girl.
That
but
was
you also said you're married.
14 to 15. So that was 8 years ago or so.
Okay.
And then I got this little closet space
Right.
at the beginning of 2017. So I was
Okay.
a single guy at that point.
Ah, okay. There it is.
At that point, I was a single
That
guy.
explains it right
And
there.
now my wife, Kristen, who's a wonderful gal and who absolutely loves beer, so thankfully she's been one of my best supporters and taste testers. And she's brought in a whole bunch of beer fanatics with her friends into my life.
Yeah.
I have some great friends that love really good beer. Kristen has more friends than I could have ever imagined having. And almost all of them really enjoy good beer. So that's one thing that we've all bonded over is, and a lot of them have to put in time and sweat and blood and tears into helping me get this place going. Maybe not the tears. Maybe that was only me.
Right.
Yeah, they've put a lot
Yeah.
of work in to help me get this going.
Yeah, like I when we were bullshitting there a little bit ago, we kind of talked about Tom and his quote unquote last batch, and it's been
Yeah.
at least a year since I brewed one, and that's mainly because my alter ego is Mike, his is Tim.
Mine's Tim.
Okay.
When we get drunk and do dumb shit, that's what our wives call us. When we brew beer, that's kind of usually it's inevitable that I become Mike and he becomes Tim, and
I like it.
we just tend to drink a little bit too much when we're brewing beer. So the wives really not quite on board anymore.
Yeah.
Copy that.
Yep.
So I like the whole getting that set up while you were single.
Yeah.
But then you married somebody that's really digging the beer scene too, so
For sure.
that's great too.
And we met, our first date was at a brewery, and we talked about my brewery and beer, my brewery ambitions at that time, if you will, and the beer that I was making, and we just talked about beer, and we sat down with a beer, and boy, did I not realize, 4 years later we'd be married. And,
It's a cool story.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
yeah.
It's a great beer love story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I fell in love with the beer and the woman behind it.
Yeah.
Should make a movie.
Right.
Sign me up.
So I do have a question for you.
Sure.
Have you ever heard of Zithos hops?
I've heard or
Fuck, here we
read
go.
about them.
Oh,
Unbelievable,
stop
Tom.
It. Stop it.
Can't go through one of these without Zithos.
I know. Hey, I gotta ask. I don't
No.
really see it mainstream, so
I've never brewed with it, but I've either heard of it or read about it. I've heard it in a book or book on, but no, I've never brewed with it.
yeah, it's very pineapple forward.
Ooh.
I've done a home brew with it. It was really good. I have like this dream recipe that I want to do, but I can't find enough hops to
Interesting.
do it.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen them available, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I couldn't look for you.
Yeah.
Keep my eyes open.
Anyways, just want to throw it out there.
Okay.
Always throwing it out there.
Well,
Hey.
if I find some, I'll let you know. Maybe we
'Kay.
could do a collaboration.
There we go.
MT Beards. Something
Empty
like
beards.
that. We can
I
right
like
off
it.
the top of the
I like it.
bearded cans.
Yeah.
No, that's not as good, but yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So usually I shave off the beard in the summer.
Smart.
It's too hot.
Yeah.
Fuck, I think Tom, you've had your beard for
I don't know. I don't.
30
I
years
can't,
now.
I can't get rid of it. My wife would kill me.
right.
Yeah.
Let me take a step back. I do keep the hair on my chin
Yeah.
because then my double would start showing. And my wife doesn't like that. So I do have to keep hair on my chin.
Fair enough.
But we are nothing. Even if you add my hair to Tom, it's nothing compared to yours.
Well, when it stops growing as much on the top of your head, you got to figure out somewhere else to grow.
Yeah,
So
well.
I had a beard when I was 17 in high school, and so I knew
Okay.
that one day I'd have a legendary beard, and I don't know that it's at legendary status yet. Maybe when I start playing Santa Claus at the mall, it'll become legendary. But really, it's been I've enjoyed it, and the 6 years I was in the Army, I wasn't able to have a beard or hair. And so when I realized the hair wasn't going to grow back and the beard was going to grow in nice and full, so I went ahead and
There you
went
go.
with the beard. So that's kind of where Brown Beard comes from, having a nice full beard. But honestly, when I go out in public, I don't know how many times I've had this happen. I'm sitting at an intersection and the person next to me in the car is like, "Hey, I love your beard." And I'm like, "What?" Or I'm at a restaurant and someone's like, "Is that real?"
Oh my word.
Yeah, you think I glued this on this morning?
Right,
Or
right.
people compliment the colors or how full of a beard I have. It's just weird, So I thought, that's something I've gotten more credibility with than just being alive or being a human. People don't say hello, they say something about my beard. So I thought, well, when you come in and to Brown Beards and you see a guy with a big brown beard behind, maybe one day we'll be gray beards, but for now we're brown beards.
Right.
And you come in, you think, maybe that's the guy that makes all the beer. And then I serve you, and you get the chance to ask about it, and that's all just one. It's not just one person. My wife helps tremendously with the tap room and setting up food trucks, everything. But for the most part, I make all of the beer and go through all of the business side of things with one of my partners. So I thought it'd be really nice if it was just me. When you came in, you saw me, and you're like, "That's probably the guy that brews all the beer and owns the place, and is happy to chat with me about everything that's going on." So I thought that'd be pretty cool, and that's why I decided to call it Brown Beards,
Nice.
Brown Beard, I guess, but
Right.
I call it Brown Beards.
Right.
Very cool.
I could never ever
Never
could I grow it that long?
Oh, okay.
Fuck no. That's ridiculous.
It takes a lot of effort.
I don't have that kind of patience. I start getting shit curling into my mouth, and it's
Yeah.
like,
So you gotta. I usually would have it trimmed every 3 to 4 weeks by the same guy. It's good. He does a great job, but you gotta. There's points in life when it comes down and your wife's like, "You gotta trim up your mustache because
Right.
I'm getting hair in my mouth when I kiss you." No good. No, not a great way to live your life. So I try to keep it edged and clean, and now. So I officially quit my day job 2 days or 3 days before we opened. 2 days, I think. Yeah, it was Wednesday. Was my last day. So 2 days before we opened. Now I can kind of let it go a little longer, and I'm not in the corporate desk job anymore, and I'm kind of doing my own thing. I can actually have a pretty long, big beard. So this is only a month of letting it go, if you will.
My goodness.
Although I'll keep it trimmed up nice and presentable for the most part. Yeah, it's kind of exciting.
So the big stereotype is that all brewers have big beards.
Yeah. maybe that's how you can tell if a person will be, have the natural gift or talent of brewing. Maybe you see them and they're like that guy. But then you have Beth and her husband Steve. I don't know that Steve has a beard. Maybe he does, but Beth doesn't. Obviously, and she brews a hell of a beer.
She does.
So, not to take that away from bearded men, but there's a ton of really fantastic ladies out there brewing. But I would, maybe you're right about that with men. Maybe that's just a way to tell. Hey, maybe that guy could brew a heck of a beer, or maybe not.
Well, maybe that explains the 4.22 rating that you got.
Yeah,
your beard is phenomenal, so you got that high rating.
4.22 inches off of my
there
chin.
You go.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's about
Soon we'll have a 5.0 on the chin.
I have never seen a 5.0 rating.
I don't know that that's possible.
I don't think it is.
I think if it was possible, you have a bunch of your friends fluffing it up. if you
Right,
will.
right.
Maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, that's This is one of the new beers that I'm doing.
Oh, that's really
It's
cool.
it's a heavily peated Scotch ale. So
Okay.
and I'm going to do it in collaboration with a band that's coming through town called Talbot Brothers. And so they're going to come and they're playing a show downtown, but they're going to play like 5 songs at the brewery and then do like an hour meet and greet.
Oh,
And then we're going to sell this beer in bottles and sell some posters of the label. And it should be cool.
Who's doing the artwork for you?
Justin Cooper. Phenomenal artist, fantastic. He did some of the later stuff for Crooked Fence.
Okay.
Not like you got all the classic labels, and then the much later stuff he did for them, like the hazy IPA with the VW bust by the river.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's just phenomenal. So he happened to show up at the brewery or get a hold of me on Instagram, and so he showed up one day and I shared some beers with him and he kind of showed me some of his stuff. I was like, I don't know why you'd want to work with me, but I'd love to work with you.
That's really cool.
He's really good.
So did he do your Brown Beard logo?
No, I did that. I made that on my phone in like 5 minutes. I just took a picture of my beard from a photo from years ago and texturized it and cut out the beard. And I did the brewery stuff that you see inside. I've done everything aside from that for myself. Yeah.
Very cool.
Talent.
Barely.
Well,
I'm pretty good with Photoshop and post editing, I guess, and cutting. I could cut a picture of you out of and put you next to the Eiffel Tower or wherever you wanted. I could do stuff like that, Photoshop. But I'm not very creative as far as drawing, or my creativity ends with a guitar.
Your creativity comes out in your beer. So.
Yeah, I think that's
Right.
that's a pretty good way to put it.
well, you said you were a musician too.
Yes. Yeah, I was.
So all musicians are very creative. I don't care who you are.
Sure.
Because I bought that dumb guitar and I can't hardly even play it. I don't know dick about guitar.
It probably takes 6 months of just listening and learning on YouTube, and then once you learn enough for chord progressions and you get some, what did Eddie Van Halen say? He said, if you have rhythm and you love music, then play and play and play until you get to where you want to be. And I was like, you know what? That's the motto I'm going to live by.
Yeah. I love music. I have no rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, I'm terrible.
Yeah, my son actually, he plays the xylophone for band, and he'll make up stuff. Like
That's
when we had
cool.
our piano in their house for a while, he would just make up songs. And,
That's legit.
yeah, it was really cool.
I like
yeah,
that.
Maybe we can start a band.
maybe.
Yeah, I'd love
Get
to
some
play guitar
xylophone in
again. Yeah, more xylophone.
Yeah. Right.
Let's get Will
right.
Ferrell to do some.
Fuck the cowbell. Let's get some
Yeah.
xylophone.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I had a friend in high school who could play the xylophone. He had 3 sticks in each hand.
No way.
Yeah, and he was an amazing, very accomplished piano player and drummer, and he would play the xylophone with three sticks, and it's just like you watch him, you're like, are you crazy?
Right.
How did you figure this out?
Right.
No, he was fantastic.
So yeah, I thought maybe I would share a little bit of beer with you. Recently, I went down to Las Vegas, went to the Beer Zombies tap room, which was super tiny. It was so fucking weird because it says, okay, Beer Zombies here. I look it up on the map. I'm like, okay, honey, darling, I have to go here. Okay.
No exceptions.
Right. I've said this before and sometimes don't go. So I said, this time I have to go. So we mapped it out. We're like, okay, it's not too far. It's just pretty much right across the interstate, which a little sketchy across the interstate. But
It can be.
you got that Raiders Allegiant Stadium over there, which
Draws a good crowd.
interesting crowd. Go Hawks. Anyway, so we go down and we find Beer Zombies, and they're right next to this healthy, like, juice bar, fit club type of thing. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going in there. I'm going into Beer Zombies. So I go in the door. Well, they had a huge door in between the two areas. Beer Zombies was kind of like your closet. It was like 8 feet wide and probably 12 feet long.
Wow.
They had the bar and a few taps. There was probably 6 people sitting at the bar, and then they had this little tiny cooler. And I said, well, shit, you got, can I fill up a growler? Oh, no, we don't do growlers. Didn't know that.
I can relate.
So I look in their beer cooler, and they don't have very many Beer Zombie beers, which is what I really wanted to try. So I start grabbing anything that looked like a Beer Zombie. I'm like, hey, how about this? What do I got? Does this look good? He's like, oh no, you got all the best ones right there. I did happen to grab a couple of Beer Zombies beer, and they are phenomenal. One that I'm sharing with you is actually not from Vegas, not from Beer Zombies. This one is from Columbus, Ohio.
This might be the first Ohio beer I've ever had, so I choose you for that.
Well, you're fucking wrong then, because this is Indiana. I didn't know there was a Columbus in Indiana. Reading the can here, this is from Columbus, Indiana.
Very good.
All right, so this is the first time I've had an Indiana beer.
Might be mine too.
Yeah. This is Tropic Nuggets, 5 years later. This is triple dry hopped with Citra, Meridian, Idaho 7, and Enigma hops. And this is a bold 11%.
It's very good though.
It is very good.
Yeah, if I took a sip of this with my eyes closed, not knowing anything, I would guess 8 to 9, maybe. I don't even know if I'd go 9.
Wow, yeah.
It's pretty
Very-
smooth.
It is
Very,
very
very smooth.
11%, you start getting
You
the,
catch it on the back end, on the back
Yeah.
end of this.
You-
Very, very, very minor.
I've had a lot of 11% IPAs like this, and it's like very, like, alcohol-y, right? It just
Oh, yeah.
hits you really hard,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Like the hard liquor, you know?
well, back in the day, you get the hot bombs, you get the big 11%ers that just boozy as all get out.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're doing a lot better job nowadays on that.
Hiding the booze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't necessarily care for that booze.
The bitters have gone to the sideline. I still love a good bitter beer, but you just don't find them anymore. Well, these are very popular. These Tropic juicy, they're really juicy beers.
Mhm.
Hide the alcohol really well. 70% more people would drink them. That's probably a bogus statistic.
I'm just making that up on the fly.
Yeah, I'm really good at that. 70% more people would drink this beer because it doesn't taste like booze.
60% of the time it works every time.
All right, there you go.
Like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Panther.
So where is your brewery? I mean, we've been talking about it forever.
Yeah.
Where's your brewery located?
I am located off of Chinden Boulevard, really fairly close to Chinden and Maple Grove. I mean, you could throw a stone to it. I am in the same parking lot as Homebrew Stuff, and in the building across from them, the same as Clairvoyant. So if you know where those two buildings, those two beer destinations are, you could probably find my place. Directly behind Pop's Popcorn. Pop's Popcorn faces Chinden, I face the Maple Grove, and you can see the parking lot for the Hyatt Lake Reserve from my patio. It's a really wonderful spot. Chinden has turned into this beer crawl, if you will, or in wine.
Yeah.
And there's some good restaurants.
Ciders,
Yeah,
wines.
all
yeah.
kinds of really. It's a craft haven, if you will.
Mhm.
I don't know what to call it, but I'm very happy to have my own little slice of it on there, and
There you
it's
go.
just fantastic, to be honest with you. I've enjoyed it being back in that neighborhood. I used to live right up the road, so being back in that neighborhood, it's fantastic.
That's cool. So, when you opened up, did you have any like reservations, like being so close to Clairvoyant and the other breweries around?
No, I didn't. I didn't really bother me, and I hope so that it didn't bother them.
Sure.
But no, I just thought people already go to that area of the world for beer, and there was two breweries and a homebrew store with a excellent bottle shop.
Yeah.
Within the same, well, a brewery and a bottle shop in the same parking lot, and a brewery half a mile down the road. So no, it didn't bother me. And the folks at Clairvoyant have just been fantastic. Met the whole crew there, Sean, the brewer, and Mike, the owner, and the only one I haven't met is the other owner, Ryan, but he's actually quite a busy guy. And I met Ryan, the taproom manager. They've all been just fantastic folks. All of those people and more came down to our grand opening and sat down and had a beer or two. I was overwhelmed with the support that I got. The Powder House, Tyler from Powder House walked in with a bunch of the brewers from his crew. And I believe the brewer over there's name's Sean. It's been a month since I met him, so if I'm wrong, Sean, I'll buy you a beer at the brewery. Just come in. If you're not Sean, just come in and slap me around and tell me I was wrong.
I'm going to go in, say I'm Sean.
Yeah.
You can't forget that guy. He's as tall as I am. And
Okay,
he had a
never
beard
mind.
too,
I'm
so-
not that tall.
Yeah.
No.
But just fantastic support from the little community there, and Mike's been great. He came in at 10 o'clock one night because he saw the lights were still on and I was in there, and he found me wrestling with my oxygen regulator and whoever at their factory put this thing in with a tool. And I had a wrench I was trying to get this fitting out of. So he at 10:15 at night walked me over to his brewery, Clairvoyant, and he helped me with getting this piece out and just making sure that everything that he was there with me for an hour. So he got in and I think he got home until 11:30 that night. So I couldn't ask for better neighbors. I really couldn't.
That's really cool.
They've been fantastic.
So do you think they've been fantastic just because of your charming good looks and your great tasting beer?
Yes, it's definitely not a lot of people you meet have as good a looks as me.
No,
so
right.
I definitely will attribute it to that. Thank you very
Right.
much.
What do you like? 6'10", 6'12"?
I'm 7'7", and I'm a very lean 220. No, I really, I just think that the community here is fantastic, and it's not just that little corner of the world. From Marcos from Loose Screw has spent a lot of time with me over the years. I remember being a fanboy, if you will. I think that's a good way to describe it. I came into the Loose Screw Brewery right after they purchased it down on Chinden, which is right next to Cobby's and Parterre now. And I walked in there, and he took a time away from what he was doing, and he showed me through his brewery. And I kind of explained to him I was a home brewer and electrician, and I just started building the control panel that I use at the brewery now. And he opened up his beautiful control panel, and although I didn't know what I was looking at the time, I knew a little bit about it. I was very fortunate to meet him that day. He's very helpful, and he gave me some suggestions on who to call for chemicals that were local, that were much cheaper than what I was buying. And I mean, he stopped in after hours or when I was brewing, or he spent some time there on Saturday night until we closed, just chatting with me, and been such a nice guy to meet. And the owner, Mike from Loose Screw, he actually spent some time. He stopped by randomly one day and just knocked on the door and introduced himself. And he was willing to sell me, although I had just bought a bunch of kegs, he was willing to sell me some kegs that they had extras of. And just a fantastic gentleman. What a nice guy to have randomly show up. Mm-hmm. I think during our opening too, I counted 6 different breweries. Meriwether Cider, the two gentlemen that run the cidery there, at least that's what I call them, the cider guys.
Yeah.
I've seen them several times since then. They always recognize me and are very nice to chat with me. And then the canning, the gentleman from there. I mean, I've had a ton of support. I even had I may have said this, but Barbarian, the brewer James and his brewer. And Beth has sat down at my bar and just Beth's been in several times. She just sold me a new mash tun for a killer price, so I can fill my tanks in one swoop rather than 2. And she was at my bar. She was sitting at my bar just last night, Sunday night. She sat down for a beer, and it was fantastic to chat with her. And I mean, there's some people out there that they don't even think about it. They don't even hesitate to give you advice or. answer questions that you have. I mean, it's just such a fantastic community. If I missed anybody that did come in, I apologize, but it's been fantastic. And then you two famous gentlemen even came down.
I
with
wouldn't
your-
say famous, but
Yeah.
we did
Wonderful
come down.
podcast.
We
Yeah.
did enjoy some beer.
You know, I will say that this area is very close. They do support
Oh, yeah.
local, support breweries. They even support our dumbasses.
They do.
A lot of
I
times,
like it.
I'm like, hey, we should talk to some people. When we started this podcast last January, not this last January, but the January before, and we've talked to a few, just small handful of breweries and things like that. And initially, I thought, fuck, there's no way they're not going to talk to us. They're just a couple morons that bought some microphones and wanted to have a good time. But everybody so far has been very willing to come and talk and share their story, and to our tens of listeners. So that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Tens of listeners.
Tens of
I
listeners.
think that I've had the same experience that you've had. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You've had more than tens of people coming into your place, though.
Maybe, yeah,
You've-
maybe 100.
Dude, you
Definitely. I think, yeah.
I swear there was 100 the first night. You had cars
I had
lined up
we had
all the way up
500.
the street.
We had 500, just about 500 unique credit cards used on
Yeah.
the first weekend.
Oh my gosh.
That doesn't count cash or repeat business, but like 400. If I remember exactly, it was 466 unique visitors that used different credit cards.
Wow.
Within 3 days. So that was pretty neat.
Unbelievable.
Yes, it very much was. We sold a lot of flights too, so
Oh, good.
that one person may have tried 4 or 5 or 6 of our beers, or if they had 2 flights to try them all. Several of Stacy from the Beer Buddies, her friends, have stopped in on the Thursday before we opened, and we had like a soft opening. And thank you, Stacy. She's been fantastic as far as marketing. I think that's one of the reasons we've had such a successful opening. But she said, I met her, I saw her at Clairvoyant just a week before we opened. I stopped.
Oh, okay.
I actually ran into her at the homebrew store because that's my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And she's like, you should come over to Clairvoyant and have a beer. And I was like, sure, I could do one. And so I stopped in. And she's like, well, and this was 2 weeks before we opened, but 1 week before I opened, she said, I'd bring a couple friends by. And I was thinking the 2 people that were sitting next to her chatting with her. She brought by 11 people,
Yeah.
her included, but
Wow.
11 people. And we had a little soft opening because we were licensed and legal. And I had 5 of my beers on tap and 3 that were coming out of the tanks just a couple days before we opened. The IPAs, to be honest with you, the Citra, the IPA, and the Blonde, all hopped beers, so they came out immediately before we opened. And she ended up bringing 11 people, so we had a really nice soft opening. And her and I think 8 or 9 other people were there the day we opened, and they all sat down and had between them all, they had a flight of everything, and several of them checked beers into to Untapped, and it was really cool. It was just a really cool experience.
Yeah, when we went in, I did see in the corner over there, I did see Stacy.
Yeah.
Stacy, not cool. You and all your people were taken up. I swear it was half the bar.
They had the
But
tables right
there was
by
a
the
lot of
window,
people.
but there was a lot.
Yeah, there was a lot of people. It's like,
Appreciate you, Stacy.
I waved to her, but she didn't even see me. It was, like I said, it was fucking crazy there.
Yeah,
it was
a
nuts.
little nuts.
So, very fantastic opening, though. I've never
you.
seen anything quite like it.
I never either, and maybe it's because it's kind of a small place, but at the same time, we had for about 3.5 hours. There's a line from the register through our little sitting
Right.
room and out
Yeah.
the door,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
it went around the sitting room and back to the bar.
Right.
And at one point, I went out the door, and people were lined up at our garage door. And I looked over, and I was like, "Is that the end of the line?" But it's a
Right.
good thing we had 2 registers and 7 total people working, because I think it went fairly fast. But the smart people would order 2 beers.
Right.
Yeah, and
Right.
they'd be like, "I might have to get back in line."
Right. I remember driving by.
But I appreciate everybody that came through.
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very much.
Fantastic. I remember driving by on Saturday, because we went down on Friday. I drove by Saturday, and there was a ton of people outside again
Yeah.
with their kids and all that kind of stuff. It's like your place is kid friendly
Yes, it is. Yeah, and pet friendly.
and
So,
pet friendly.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you can bring the whole family by, and we wanted to do that because we have a ton of our friends have kids, young children, or love to bring their dogs. So when we were thinking where could we go, a lot of the times we'd be like, where's pet friendly? What places are pet friendly?
Right.
So I didn't want to limit anybody from having the chance to come in. And we'll probably have kids sometime soon, sooner than later. So if I was the guy that's like, you can't bring your kid in here. What are you thinking?
Sure.
And then my kid was in
Right,
there and be like, what a hypocrite. So honestly though, I wouldn't want to limit anybody. And I never really thought about kids coming into a brewery or whatever prior to opening this. But we had a lot of friends that were like, will we be able to come with our kid? And I was like, well, of course you will. I'd hate to tell your child they're not allowed here. And so we even we're working on getting more games. We have like a little game shelf where you could come and play cards, and it's all free, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to limit to anybody. And we would hope that if you come, maybe you'll go to the park next door and have a hike or walk.
Sure.
Do a walk and enjoy the evening in that neck of the woods. It's kind of a cool place.
Yeah, there's been many times my wife and I have talked recently, like there wasn't really a lot of places that were kid friendly when had young kids and everything like that.
Yeah.
It would have been really cool to have something like that, just to go and escape and be with the family and enjoy a beer or whatever like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's really cool.
And my goal would be to eventually maybe get a slushy machine, so that way your kids
There
are like,
you go.
hey, let's go to the brewery.
Sounds
Let's go to that place that has games and slushies that are free.
Right.
And then you're like, absolutely, let's go.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I'd hope that we could have more than root beer or
Yeah.
LaCroix or whatever for kids as we grow.
That would be a huge selling point.
Yeah,
My
no
kid
doubt
loves
about
slushies.
I love slushies.
What kid doesn't love slushies?
We tried to get
Yeah.
a virgin slushy in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
They said no. They turned us down.
No.
They would rather not have their money. They said, no, we put vodka in it. I said, well,
It's like
you just
the
leave that
vodka's
out?
pre-mixed in.
so yeah, she loves slushies. She'd love to come.
Awesome. That's something that's like a goal of mine here within a year or two. I'd say 1 to 2 year goal is. There's obviously priorities, and that's probably not at the top of my priority list. But
No, sure.
I honestly would love to have that.
You got to
That
get
would
your
just be.
beer back in there. I
Yeah,
mean, you're playing catch up at this
Yes.
point.
We are playing catch up, and I just mentioned this, but we bought a 3-barrel mash tun from Beth at Bear Island, and we're gonna start doing I've got 2 boil kettles. I'm gonna start, and my control panel will run them in tandem. So we're gonna start doing 2-barrel batches. Rather than doing a single barrel batch that's between 6 and 8 hours, we'll do a 2 that's maybe 10 to 12. So that'll be a 10 to 12 hour day, but I'll be able to fill that tank in one swoop. The double IPA is a rough beer for that system that I have. It's big grain bill, and that ends up with a lot of stuck mashes no matter how much rice hulls you use. I end up with a big stuck mash. So I spent this last Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays ago, I was there for 20 hours. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore.
Damn.
And I was sitting there staring at that mash tun. I just picked it up the day before, and I thought, I got to figure this out. But I also was like, maybe the most expensive beer that you brew in the brew house should not be on a brand new piece of equipment. Just do it, suffer a little bit, and then I'll make the German beers because they're not, there's not a lot to them as far as hops and malts, specialty
Sure.
malts and timing. They're probably the more, as far as it goes, more affordable beers to brew. My favorites, more affordable beers to brew. So if you had something go wrong by chance, although it's something I've done forever, I don't know that I'll have a problem. I thought that would be the beer to have a problem with. One that's not terribly, $33 a pound hops. No, we'll save that for the system you're
Yeah, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So are you already thinking about expanding?
I've already got plans in place for the next 5 years. So I would hope that by our 3rd year of being open, maybe I have enough money. I plan to reinvest everything I get back into the company, obviously. But I hope to have at least a 3.5, but more realistically, maybe a 5-barrel system.
Okay.
And I'd like to open a second place somewhere that's underrepresented. As far as you go downtown, you have 6 breweries, right?
Right.
So,
You're right.
Right.
but Meridian only will have loose screw. Well, so not that I want to go to Meridian. I love Meridian. I think it'd be a great spot. I haven't decided where we would go, but I'd want it to be in a little corner of the world. If I could pick up our little tap room and put it in a spot that there wasn't a brewery for 10 miles, that's what I would do, as long as there was a lot of housing and it made sense. Because then you'd have a brewery in a little neighborhood spot that made sense, and then people could call it their neighborhood spot, and that's my goal.
Yeah.
So within 3 years, I'd like to have a second location and then I'd like to have a bigger system, and maybe that bigger system is just where we are now, and then I could have just a little bit of a smaller tap room, just push my bar out 3 or 4 feet, expand on my cooler, and then find a second location to where I could open. And that's the most that I've thought about it. I think within 20 years, I think it'd be really great to have a little bit of distribution, maybe throughout Idaho and Washington and Oregon. But I'm gonna play it one trick. I'm a one-trick pony. I'm gonna play it as the best I can with what I have right now, and
Sure.
just try to make it through my first year. See how everything goes.
Maybe you could kick out old man Pop. Pop has been there for a long time with
He
the
has been
popcorn.
there,
So,
yeah.
so maybe he won't be around too much longer. You just kick Pop out of there and just
I'd love to have that
expand
space
within the building. And
If that space ever came available, I would take it if I could. I think I would have good rapport with the property owner. But they've already got a licensed kitchen, so it makes sense. Maybe I could do sandwiches there,
Hey,
and then
yeah.
I could sell them to Clairvoyant and myself, and I could sell them to, the homebrew store. It's like,
Homebrew,
we
right,
got good sandwiches, we've got popcorn, and then maybe I could have a little corner of that for barrels,
There you
and
go.
then a little bit extra cold storage.
right.
Absolutely.
But
there you go.
yeah, I know he does a whole bunch of contract sales, and he has a retail operation. So if that space ever disappeared, I don't know that it will. I mean, his popcorn is incredibly. He was popping popcorn today, and the second I walked in my door, I was like, wow, that smells good. So I just wish if you're listening to this, just pop more popcorn while I've got customers in there.
Yeah, there you go.
Because everyone loves to smell freshly popped popcorn.
So have you met Pop?
Yeah. I've talked to him today. I've met them several times. They're super nice. He actually has a popcorn that it's flavored like pizza. So you can come
Wow.
in, and I have
Really?
I had a few bags. I ate one myself, admittedly, but I have one bag left, and I'll get more. But you could have pizza and beer sitting at the bar.
Nice.
It's
That's
just
really cool.
Little popcorns.
That is cool.
Yeah, so we do sell his stuff. I tried to keep it within our business park as much as I could. So in the space before me was a winery called Parterre Winery. So I have his wine. I have Pop's popcorn. I actually have a Clairvoyant Amber on. And I have Edge Brewing ciders because they have an affiliation with the homebrew store. I think the
okay.
owners are affiliated anyway. So I try to keep it within that little park the best I could, the business park.
So that kind of brings up a good point, is that you do have other people on tap
Yes.
in your place.
Yeah,
Guest taps.
we brought in guest taps, and that was specifically to help us bridge the gap between opening weekend, where we sold more beer than I could have ever imagined, and being where we are now, where we keep putting beer on and people come in and keep wanting to try our beer, which I'm very thankful for, so thank you for doing that. But we keep selling out of the beers that we have personally, so I brought in some guest taps to try to bridge the gap. And that's been fun, I'll be honest with you. I get the opportunity to take a look at every distributor out there and say, well, what beer would I want to drink, or what's my favorite style, or what have people been asking for? So I get the chance to kind of shop around and bring in some fun stuff.
So I'm just assuming that more people, your beer sells out a lot more.
Yes. When you go, well, my theory, and I think this is proven with people that have come in and talked to me, when you go to that brewery, you want to try what they have.
Exactly.
And although at the moment, admittedly, it seems like I really like IPAs, which I don't. I like them. They're not my favorite thing. But when you come in, you see that I have a pale ale that's dry hopped, and I have a session. I have a single hop IPA. Well, not a single hop. It's just a hazy IPA that's a single IPA. It's not a double. I have my double coming up, and I had my other beer is the Beard Labrewski, so that's not an IPA. But two of the three are hopped beers. And I have a third one coming. Which was my most popular beer, our first weekend, and so that's definitely not my favorite style, but that's what we have on. So it helps me to alleviate the fact that when you come in, you're like, this guy must love IPAs. He's crazy. I like IPAs. No, but really, it's been a nice way to just ensure we stay open and have a little bit of everything for everybody that comes in. We have cider, canned cocktails, non-alcoholic beverages. whatever we can do, root beer, just to kind of bridge the gap to help us get through this.
That wraps up part 1 of our episode with Bryce from Brown Beard Brewing. Be sure to tune in to part 2.